And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Thursday, January 5th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. We don't have to deal with a 12-game slate like we did yesterday. 4 games on the docket. A very interesting slate. We're running into a ton of center-only value on the DraftKings side, but we also have Nikola Jokic out there. Luka Doncic has a big-time pay-up option looking fantastic in a tough matchup against the Boston Celtics. I am very excited for this slate, and I'm excited to break it down. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Twitter handles are below our heads. Well, and bodies, I guess. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Adam, what's up?
Not much. Looking forward to not having to deal with 12 games today. Last night was frustrating.
Yeah.
Didn't have anything good on the main slate. Night slate, I was crushing for like 3/4 of it. And then the fourth quarter was basically just all of my teams flying backwards, which was really frustrating. So yeah, looking forward to a 4-gamer. That's at least enough games. Like that. That's like the smallest slate that I enjoyed playing.
Yeah. I really enjoyed how we were like, yo, I don't understand how no one's playing the Raptors tonight. This looks like a really nice spot for GPPs. And then you look at their first quarter line and it's like, oh, cool. Everybody is going to be awful here. They're not going to make another basket. Now, obviously that recovered a bit, and Van Vliet certainly became a guy that you would have been very happy to have, but boy, oh boy, did they get off to a bad start.
Yeah, so there were 2 games last night. That game and the Lakers Miami game, where it was just that weird, and it's because like there was such concentrated like usage for the Lakers for Westbrook specifically, and so many just minutes for the guys in the Toronto game, but like just incredibly low scoring games. And then you look at the player stat lines and it's like, how did all of these fantasy totals come from this game?
Yeah.
Like that's how I felt looking at, seeing Van Vliet, seeing Giannis, seeing Gary Trent. And then in the Lakers game, that's the game that sort of passed me on the night slate because I had a ton of the Kings game. I had a ton of the Golden State Detroit game. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like this worked out perfectly because those games both, shot out and nothing's happening in the Lakers game. And it's just like, oh, but Bam Adebayo is scoring as many points as Domantas Sabonis somehow.
I'm so happy that I had no part of yesterday's slate. I am excited to play this one. We've got an hour to break down all 4 games, and you kind of got to dig into the depths of it on a day like today because bench guys will start to matter. Here's one for you. I run an optimal for FanDuel and DraftKings at the end of the process show once we go through all of the projections. And this isn't a testament to like how good of a play this person looked, but Santi Aldama made my DraftKings optimal today, and it was just like, okay. And like, he doesn't grade out as like a particularly optimal play. It's just like for that one lineup, it fit perfectly. And I was like, oh, it's going to be that kind of slate when we start looking at this stuff.
Yeah, that's always fun.
I was like, I don't even know how that happened. Like just that one positional scarcity that you need. Anyway, let's get into it. Speaking of Santi Aldama,
you'll take like 1 minute off of him and he'll show up in nothing close to the top.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, it doesn't take much. You probably, I think the difference for the DraftKings lineup for first and second was like 0.14 or something. So you could take a tenth of a minute away and it might probably just swing it completely. The Memphis Grizzlies are 6-point favorites in Orlando. 227 total here. Both of these teams on a back-to-back, which means the analysis for this one is going to be not as good as it's going to be for the deeper dive and for live before lock. But for right now, I'm treating Memphis like they have the same rotation that they had yesterday. So I'm leaving Brandon Clark out. He's missed the previous 2 games. I'm just going to assume he's out right now. If he's back in, it's kind of easy to assume what happens. Maybe you take a minute or 2 away from Steven Adams and then you just take Tillman out. So I don't think the trickle down is all that big. But for right now, that is the assumption that I'm moving forward with. Morant, Bane, Brooks, Adams, Jackson, all 15 to 20-ish% owned. We're doing Steven Adams thing again today, but not nearly as chalky because there are multiple versions of Steven Adams for today. He's 5,700 on DK and 7,300 on FanDuel. What a ridiculous gap in prices here.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah,
I lean towards the FanDuel side being like the answer is in the middle, but
yeah,
like I've Steven Adams is somebody that I've been playing a lot of in tournaments even prior to this Brandon Clark stuff. So like
Sure.
I just think he's underpriced on DraftKings. So I would lean the FanDuel side, but realistically, probably in the middle.
Yeah. After that, though, we're just talking about all the starters looking pretty similar. Steven Adams, very clearly the best option, but again, he's center only, so that kind of like equalizes him to guys that could play in other positions. When you look at Memphis right now, does anything immediately stand out to you, and why is it Desmond Bane?
Yeah, I mean, it's Desmond Bane. Like, again, not based on anything from last night. He played 14 minutes in the first half, then you got the blowout, so who knows exactly how many minutes he would have played. But the guy's not going to play 28 minutes a night the rest of the year.
Nope.
And he's played like 28, 28, 28, 26 minutes, partly because of blowouts over his last 4. He's going to just play a normal 32, 33-minute game very soon. And at 6,700 at this point, he's priced for 28 minutes. So, like, I don't think it's a situation where you're overpaying, hoping that he plays more minutes. I think you're either paying the correct price or you are underpaying by a lot. So I like going right back to Desmond Bane here. Certainly going to be easier to get to on tonight's slate than he was last night. The downside of that is now you're getting 16% instead of 1. Probably also means tonight will be the night he plays 34 minutes. You know, the field always gets it right. So, or at least it feels that way. So yeah, I like getting the Bane. I like getting the Jackson at 6,500. Still a good price tag there. Dylan Brooks certainly more appealing on a 4-gamer than it was last night on the 12-gamer. All of those guys are just pretty easy to get to. And then, Ja at 10-4, certainly happy to get there as well, assuming that, he plays the back-to-back. Should play 33, 34 minutes. If this game's competitive, he's a 1.4 to 1.5 fantasy point per minute guy. Always going to be happy to get there. Good matchup and all of that as well.
On the FanDuel side, Morant, Bane, Brooks, and Jackson are all basically like 25% owned. Adams doesn't get to really participate the same way. I like Bane the most out of anybody here. You mentioned it too. He is my most exposed guy from the Grizzlies as of right now, getting to a decent chunk of Jaren Jackson. I'm basically getting to know Ja Morant. We'll be able to talk a little bit in the future about why that is. There's a very clear reason for it for me. The paying up today is going to be very, very interesting. I separating everybody, the price tiers, the fact that Luka projects as like a man among boys on today's slate, even with real legitimate high-end options that are around him. I'm excited to talk through it all. Do you see, assuming that we do get this same sort of Memphis lineup, do you see anything from the Memphis bench that becomes appealing to you on a 4-game slate?
Not really. I mean, you mentioned Aldama. He's 3,400. He's getting 6% ownership. Like, sure, he should play 16 to 20 minutes. Obviously, you're not excited about that at all. But if it's just kind of a piece you need as a final spot to get to a lineup you love, then yeah, try and get lucky. Maybe Jackson gets in foul trouble. It happens once in a while. But other than that, no, not really. Tyus Jones, I guess, would be second at 4,300. Same kind of thing. You're not really hoping. You're not like, it's unlikely Morant gets in foul trouble, clearly, but you're just hoping to get that rotation where maybe Jones plays a few minutes alongside Morant and helps to get there.
What is created if, for some reason, we do get Desmond Bane sitting on the back-to-back?
That would probably open up more minutes for Tyus Jones. You would just get a few more of him playing alongside John Morant, most likely. John Conchar would likely move back into the starting lineup. 4K would make him look probably really popular.
Yeah.
Shooting guard, small forward as well. Like they still, if it's just Bane that rested, they would still have plenty of wings to where you don't need Conchar to play 30 minutes or anything. But he would certainly be expected to play more than the 19 he played the bench yesterday. So if he moved into the starting lineup, he would probably become really popular. You could take shots on like Tyus Jones as a pivot, David Roddy as a pivot, and hope that they steal minutes from Conchar. But Conchar would be the guy that projects the best.
Okay. Anything else here that you want to touch on from Memphis?
No, I mean, certainly likely to look different by tonight once we get an injury report.
Yeah.
Like they, if I remember right, on their last back-to-back, they just rested like half the team.
Bane, Clark, Aldama.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a couple ago. I know there was one recently where they were just like...
Well, I guess the Clark is probably not a rest, so Bane, and that's it. Really.
I thought there was one recently where like Morant sat. Had they just not recently?
They haven't had a back-to-back before December 15th, at least. So if it's recent, it's at least, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe, but my sheet cuts off at that point. Then we get to the Orlando side where we get to know that one, they're also on a back-to-back. So we don't technically know what's going on with them totally, but we do know some suspensions are over. So Franz Wagner should just be back. Mo Wagner is still out. We're not going to have Bull. Jalen Suggs, while isn't technically questionable, appears like he's going to be available for today for the first time in who the hell knows how long at this point in time. So Orlando has a bunch of bodies back in comparison to what we had yesterday. It sort of just makes things a little bit easier, honestly, just because once you start slotting in you put Franz Wagner back in for 30 minutes, you don't have to be as worried about who gets the slop at the bottom because those guys are just not going to register. Let's just start all the way at the top where even on a 4-game slate, Paolo Banchero on DraftKings, 13.5% owned, is the highest owned guy on DK. Now, Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr. are both in the mid-20s on FanDuel. Franz Wagner gets to 17 on FanDuel. But there's just not a lot of ownership coming into Orlando. I don't have any major disagreements here, but I do have one guy that I think that should be pulling a bit more ownership. I'm anxious to see where you end up. But what stands out immediately to you from Orlando?
Is your guy Gary Harris?
It is not, but I do have a bunch of Gary Harris. But I'm happy to say yes for Gary Harris as well, but it's still not him.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a tricky team. I don't think a lot looks great. Like Banchero at 8K certainly looks good. Small forward, power forward, should play 34 minutes or so. The nice thing about Orlando when they get guys back is you don't see the same sort of drop off in production, because they have so many guys that just slot in with the same usage rates. So like for example, when Jalen Suggs went down, it was just Cole Anthony's going to soak up more minutes, or vice versa. When Cole Anthony got hurt early in the year and Suggs steps in, it's not like you're adding a huge bump for Banchero and Fultz, and then when Anthony came back, you had to get rid of it because Suggs had just soaked it up, and then Anthony became Suggs again. So that is kind of the nice thing with this team. Franz Wagner leaves, Wendell Carter comes back. He's been out half the year, and it's just he's another high usage guy. So it doesn't all equal out perfectly, but you don't get the same situations where guys are just wildly overpriced. So that's kind of nice to deal with. Wendell Carter Jr. at 9% still looks pretty good. He's projected with a 24% chance of being optimal. So I assume the ownership is based on the fact we don't know if he's going to play on the back-to-back. But
we have it at 24%?
Optimal, yeah.
What is he on FanDuel? Because on FanDuel, he's got a better price and power forward. Is it 40?
45.
Oh. Okie doke. Both of the DraftKings number seems really high to me.
Seems high to me too. But we have him with a 25% boom percentage and a 24% optimal percentage on DraftKings.
How many minutes did we give him?
30.
Okay. Whew. I mean, I like him too, and he's my most exposed guy on the FanDuel end, but that is aggressive on DraftKings.
I mean, if he's in starting, I think expecting around 30 makes sense.
Oh yeah, I just mean there's only so many optimal percentages to go around, and we are we're not short on center options that are in this price range once again, and it's even more extreme today.
Yeah, I wonder where we end up being
Yeah,
we'll find out shortly. I don't know who your guy is that you're low on. I think these guys all just kind of look fun.
I'm fascinated with $5,100 Cole Anthony today, just because I don't have a really great grasp on his minutes. And if he's 8% owned, I gave him 26 minutes. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. I don't know how much Suggs is going to impact him. He's been out for a while now. I don't exactly think that Jalen Suggs is just going to come back and play a ton of minutes. They have so many dudes that they could just that don't have to show up on the floor that played yesterday. Do you think 26 minutes for Cole Anthony is crazy? Is that a little high for him today, just given what's happening?
Median wise, it might be a little high. Typically I go 24, 25. So it's definitely in the right ballpark. And they are still somewhat shorthanded. So I typically project mid-20s for him. He gives you a lot of volatility because you get plenty of games where he plays 20 to 21, but then other games where he plays 30. He got 30 last night, but that was in part because Markelle Fultz was in foul trouble in the second quarter. Like I'm with you. Maybe like the 7 or 8% he's getting on DraftKings is a little bit low at 5,100, but also like he just has enough 20 to 22 minute games in his range that I don't really want to go crazy on Paul Anthony.
That's fair. I just don't know if I like even at 24 minutes or whatever. I just don't know if I mind given him being like at least from a guard perspective, a pretty good point per minute dude who is to me a reasonable salary that has the potential to just be out there for a couple extra minutes. Like this can break a couple different ways for them.
Yeah.
And I do like Gary Harris, by the way.
Yeah, and Fultz at 6,300 is kind of similar for me too. Like he's probably playing 30 minutes if he avoids foul trouble. He's getting 5% ownership. I think both of those guys, him and Anthony, have just plenty of upside for their salaries. The Harris piece, like for me, it's purely if he's starting. But I assume that you're going to have Wagner, Fultz, Banchero, Carter in the starting lineup. Then it's a matter of, do they go Houston? Do they go Harris? Do they throw Suggs out there? Do they go Anthony, which I don't expect. My guess is that it's
Harris.
Again. Yeah. And also it's a back-to-back at Gary Harris, who knows. But if it's Harris at 3,800, I mean, played 27 minutes last night, I'd expect upper 20s again tonight. Not that he's the most exciting fantasy option, but you mentioned it at the top that your DraftKings optimal had Santi Aldama basically just to close out the lineup. So it gives you an idea that maybe you just need some cheap Ford type guys.
Any interest in Bamba today as the straight backup, just like I told you?
Yeah. I'm pretty annoyed about that. Not really. I mean, it's a tournament play. Like he's 4,300. If something happens where he plays 22 to 24 minutes, he's going to be good. But you've also already mentioned that there's a ton of good centers. So I'm not sure how much you really want to be putting in a $4,300 Bamba that projects for like 18 to 20 minutes.
Okay. Just checking. El Negro Loco with the super chat. Happy birthday, Adam. I agree. I didn't want to blow up your spot on the show. None of my business. But now that it's out there and you have no choice but to respond to it, happy birthday.
I can still ignore it. No, but thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Anything else we should touch on here for Orlando?
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, just it's similar to Memphis. Like there's a good chance that when we come back to do the show for the deeper dive that we have stuff we really like from Orlando and from Memphis, but right now it's kind of just like assuming everybody's in. Nothing that like really stands out, outside of those Memphis guys that we talked about.
Yeah, they're semi-obvious to be able to talk about right now, but they're live for like weird changes that really invalidate everything.
Exactly.
Schedule for the rest of the day. And before you even get that, hit the like button. We're at 54 likes now. I think we can get ourselves up to 100 pretty quickly. NFL Strategy Show at 11 a.m. That's coming up next. 2 p.m. gets you the NHL Strategy Show. We have the No House Advantage NBA Show at 3:30. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 5 o'clock. And then live before lock at 6 o'clock, taking you all the way up to 7. Should be a good slate, folks. So make sure you're watching all of the content that we have for you. And it's not just that. Tons of pre-recorded content on this channel, on the Odd Shopper channel as well. If you're looking to see something about sports for a given day, I think we're the place to be. So go check us out. Certainly the very clear game of the day today, although you can make a case for Clippers Denver, but it's this one. Boston Celtics, 2-point favorites in Dallas, 230 total. This is going to be a fun one. For the Boston Celtics, we look at it now. They're not on a back-to-back, and Time Lord is not on the injury report. So we have a full-strength Boston Celtics team, and it's a full-strength Boston Celtics team that is not really pulling all that much ownership on the DK side. Time Lord, in fact, is 18% owned at 4,100. We can have a conversation about that one now. Smart is at 15. Everybody else is like around 10. So not a lot of ownership coming into Boston. Marcus Smart is 32% owned on FanDuel at 6K, which is kind of scary considering I have him as well. And if he gets ejected again today, he and I are going to have some words. What do you do when you look at Boston? I'd wreck him.
Who would last longer, Josh against Marcus Smart or Greg against Jimmy Butler?
Josh against Marcus Smart, and it's not close.
Yeah, I'll say I've seen you both in person, but
I mean, if I know that it's like if this is not just like a normal MMA fight, I'm willing to do some really dirty stuff to try to win. Like I will take out eyeballs, I will bite off ears and stuff. I'll do what I need to do. But yeah, it's me by far.
Yeah, as I started to formulate the question, I was like, this isn't even a question.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Butler is massive compared to Greg.
Jimmy Butler is also massive compared to Marcus Smart.
Yes. I am much more comparable in stature to Marcus Smart.
Right. I was gonna say, like, you and Marcus Smart are like the same. You started with like the same mold, and then he went to the gym a lot, and you did a lot of other things.
Yes. Yeah, I'm Marcus Smart without the physical gifts.
Right. And the drive to develop them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's more of a time thing. If I could just not have a job, I would very happily like get myself into great shape.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, at this point too, like,
that ship sailed.
Right, like he's been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah. He's got better scaffolding.
Right. Yeah. While you were doing whatever the hell it was you did in college, he was in the gym.
Yeah, I was just 12-ounce curls for 4 years.
Right.
And great muscular endurance. Anyway, Boston Celtics. What do we do with Time Lord as the highest owned Celtic? Because that feels odd. Or awesome.
What's the difference between him and Mo Bamba?
In theory, Robert Williams can play all of the minutes. Now, I don't.
In theory, so can Mo Bamba.
Right, but like, all right, let's start here. Do you think Robert Williams starts?
No.
Okay. Because like at some point in time, he will.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And if he starts, this is a totally different conversation. But like,
sure.
For now, I have no reason not to think that he's just playing his normal 18 to 22 minutes off the bench.
By the way, I agree with you. There's essentially no difference other than like Robert Williams doesn't need foul trouble to get him more minutes. Like he could just be set to play 22, which is always going to be more than Mo Bamba's expectation. But like, it's not 17% ownership to nothing. It doesn't make sense to me. I agree.
I think Williams makes sense. He's cheap. He can play plenty of minutes. Like we've seen them. We know they will play him alongside Al Horford. They haven't been doing it a lot recently, but they certainly can and at some point will. But we know that they also can play Carter alongside Bamba, even though, as I said yesterday, I don't think you're going to see that much right now. But I get like why Williams is a reasonable play. I just don't think the gap between Williams and Bamba is that great because from a median standpoint, I think you project Williams for like 20 minutes, you project Bamba for like 18, and that does not get you a 18-1 gap in chances of success.
No, it's pretty easy to just not want to play Robert Williams if he's pulling 17% ownership. I also don't expect him to be pulling 17% ownership. It's a weird spot to grab a center that doesn't have the same upside as the 10 other centers that look exceptional on a 4.
Here's another one for you. 23% chance of being optimal.
Just no. No, not so much.
I actually wanted to see what our center.
Yeah, is the total 400?
Right. So I guess on DraftKings you can play too, but of the center guys, Carter is first, Williams is second.
Adams isn't in that?
Adams is down at 18%. So he's, of the true centers, of the center-only guys, he's fourth behind Carter, Williams, Şengün, and then it's Adams. About the same as Zubac, slightly ahead of Jokic.
We'll see where we end up at the end of the day. Let's just open it up, though. Like, what do you see when you look at Boston? Because I don't have anybody that I look at that I immediately want to get to, no doubt about it. Like, when you start talking about Jason Tatum, then you're comparing him to 5 other dudes in a similar price tier. Sifting between the guards, it's hard to ever find a priority between the Derek Whites and Malcolm Brogdons and stuff. Like, they're a really difficult team to peg down for today.
Yeah, agreed. One other spot that's interesting, and chat's not going to like this one. If Robert Williams at 4,100 and center only is pulling 18% ownership, how the hell is Al Horford at 5K and power forward eligible pulling 7?
I don't know. I have Al Horford twice as likely to be in the optimal as his current ownership right now, and I have Robert Williams as half as likely to be in the optimal as his current ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. We only have Al Horford projected for 23 fantasy points. I'm not sure I'm following that one either. But
I mean, I have him at 24. I don't exactly have him like jumping off the page, but 8% owned at 5K power forward center. Like that's just a better environment than Robert Williams.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have him at 29 and a half minutes. So like the projection is fine, but it is a slow, unappealing matchup against Dallas. It is still at Horford, but you get better positional eligibility. You get still a cheap price tag. I'm not even saying this in a way where like I think Al Horford's a great play or something. I'm just like I don't get how Robert Williams is like markedly better.
I don't think he is. So you and I are on the same page here, which makes me know how this is going to go tonight.
Yeah.
Do you find Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum all that interesting other than just the fact that they are Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like Tatum's pushing 11K, Brown, at 9,500. Both of those are fine, but you have John Morant in that price range, assuming that he plays. You have Luka and Jokic on the slate. It's just tough. Like I think that it's gonna be kind of tough to get to those guys. Not to say that again there's anything wrong with them. They're both really, really good, clearly, but don't love the price tags. I do like the 6K price tag on Marcus Smart. 15% ownership for him. Should play mid-30s in minutes, assuming that he doesn't foul out and or get ejected. But fight Luka. But I think that's probably the price tag I like the most on Boston.
You can fight me.
Yeah,
it's very similar to Luka.
Similar athleticism, man.
That's still not even remotely close to true.
I know.
Unfortunately, I don't have anything else to say for Boston here. Like they're obviously a very easy team to talk about, and you don't have to like all of the guys that play are in play, except for Sam Hauser.
Yeah, 4,800 Brogdon in tournaments makes some sense too.
Yep. And then we go to Dallas. Luka Doncic is 12,600. He's 12.8 on FanDuel. He's about 30% owned across both sites. He is my number one guy. I'm going to have him in almost everything today. What should be a competitive game. He's playing 38 minutes a game or more every single night. I have him projected for almost 70 fantasy points on DraftKings today. I just think he looks incredible. Today, he's my clear pay up option.
Yeah, I think he looks great as well. And you get, a little bit more. It's just a little bit easier to fit him into lineups than Jokic as well because of the position. Even where, even on DraftKings was only point guard, you at least have 3 spots you can roster him at instead of 2. Projects clearly great, like you said, playing huge minutes, coming off of a game where he just played 41 against the Rockets. You're not going to project that. You're assuming he's playing 37, 38. So, yeah, I'm with you. Luka looks absolutely fantastic.
We get to the rest of these.
Still no Green, still no Maxey. So, you're still expecting that condensed Dallas rotation as well.
Around 15% ownership coming to Dinwiddie, Hardaway, and Wood. I looked at this today. In games that Dorian Finney-Smith did not play, it's like 8 or 9 or whatever it is at this point in time. Spencer Dinwiddie has like a 15% usage rate or some crazy, stupid low number. I have him at 0.78 FanDuel points per minute. And yet, because he's playing so much, 6,200 on DraftKings, 6,100 on FanDuel, I still really like Spencer Dinwiddie, no matter, there's still, because you can see the actualized version of when he's having a good game, some of that usage can come back. Even at those shit numbers, 38 minutes at that price works.
Right. So Dinwiddie's just interesting to talk about because you're getting more playing time, which is great. And I was there early and it didn't work out for the reasons that you were just saying. But the other problem, not only is Dinwiddie playing more, Luka is playing more. And Christian Wood is playing more. So when you put Christian Wood, Luka, and Dinwiddie on the floor together, Dinwiddie has like a 15% usage rate and does absolutely nothing. Yeah. And with their normal rotations, Dinwiddie plays minutes alongside Luka, then Luka goes to the bench, Dinwiddie plays alongside Christian Wood. You get a little bit of overlap where all 3 are out there. But now you have Christian Wood starting and you have Luka playing almost the entire game. You're not getting those really important minutes where Spencer Dinwiddie plays without Luka. You're not getting enough of those. So his per minute production really does take a hit. But at 6,200, playing 38 minutes, he's still going to project reasonably well. And that upside is still there where, like you said, if he's just knocking down shots, you will get a few more for him. But on average, it's kind of like it sort of just balances out. The minutes go up, the usage goes down. It's even though he's been a starter regardless, it's almost like when you take that 6th man and move him into the starting lineup and you bump the minutes by 4 and then you cut the usage rate by, 20%. That's kind of how it's played out for Dinwiddie. And it sort of just comes out in the wash and he looks like a perfectly fine play, pulling 15% ownership at 6,200.
I don't love the ownership that Christian Wood is getting. 7,900 on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel. To me, he scares me.
Why?
Obviously going to be a little bit worse just in this particular role, the way that the team is set up right now. I got him in for 29 minutes. Maybe it's possible that I'm just a little light there. I got him at 1.16 FanDuel points per minute for this spot. I just think given the position, I can find more efficient ways to get to him. Do you find him interesting today at 7,900?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you as far as he always scares me because it's Christian Wood. But like, if he avoids foul trouble, he's likely playing north of 30 minutes, and he's still a good point per minute guy, even with Luka out there. So, like, I think the power forward eligibility for him is big, and 19% ownership seems basically in line with where it should be.
Yeah. Coming out of my sim at 12%. If I gave him another minute, that would probably get him up to like 15 or 16. It would be right there. But he is the guy that gives me like the most pause. I am getting to some Hardaway. I don't really think there's much to add there. If you want to play some Reggie Bullock, I think that's fine. The minutes are there. He's 3,500. He doesn't do anything when he's out there. Any interest in Dwight Powell as the Mavs Mo Bamba?
No, not really. Because like the difference between Powell and Robert Williams and Mo Bamba is just the point per minute production. It's like the same thing we were talking about yesterday with Hernan Gomez versus Jackson Hayes. If you wanted to gamble on one of the Pels backup centers, with Bamba and Williams, you only need to get lucky in one spot. You just need them to play more minutes than they're projected to play. With Powell, you need him to play more minutes than he's projected to play, and then also produce more fantasy points than normal.
Do you have anything else that you want to touch on here for Dallas? Because we don't really need to dig into the bench.
Yeah, no, I think that's about it. Like, Bertans isn't playing enough for me to want to take shots there. Kemba's not playing enough. Ntilikina's Ntilikina. I think that's it.
We got a super chat earlier from Thaddeus Brown. I don't know where we're going to go with this one, but said, Adam, what do you set your sort lineups to?
I don't really understand the question.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like,
and if the question is, how do you sort your lineups? That is a much bigger question than a 30-second answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I assume that was the question, and like the end part of that is by trying to balance projection and ownership, but there's a lot before it.
Yeah. Sorry, Thaddeus. Apologies. All right, nothing else for Dallas. So let's talk about PrizePicks. I'm repping the PrizePicks gear for today. They are the presenting sponsor of this show. If you want to make a deposit at PrizePicks, there is a link in the description of the video. Click it, head on over, make a deposit. You'll get up to $100 on that first deposit. And if you don't have 100 and you put in 50, they'll match with 50 as well. You can do this across sports because you're picking over-unders, putting together a card. And if you can get 5 on one, you'll net up to 10x your entry fee. We're talking NBA, NHL, NFL, college football, college basketball, golf, soccer, tennis, Eurobasket, all sorts of good stuff out there right now. We're going to talk about fantasy scores, which have been posted for today. We're going to start it off. And a quick reminder, just in case you didn't remember, Adam, this is going to be FanDuel scoring for PrizePicks. Are you ready?
Yep.
Luka Doncic, over under 61.5.
We have him at 61.4. I like the over, I think.
I agree wholeheartedly. To me, it is a clear over. I have him at 66 in 38 minutes. Even if you want to be pessimistic and give him 36 minutes, I still like the over. Same game, opposite side, Jason Tatum, over under 47.5.
Slight over there. We have him at 48.3. I think that seems fine.
I got him at 47.5, the exact line. So nothing else to add. Christian Wood, the guy that had me a little nervous, 34.5.
I like the over. We have a 37.9 in 32 minutes. Even if you take a minute or two off, that's going to be an over.
I got him at 33.5. I think that I could probably give him that extra minute, which is going to put him right on that line. So I don't have anything else that I would want to add. Final one, our boy, Spencer Dinwiddie, 27.5.
Where is he?
I have the over here, and I have him projected pretty shitty, so I like it.
Yeah, over. I mean, we have him at 29, and we only have him for 34 minutes, so Like, I think he plays more minutes. I think the per minute rate might come down a little, but either way, I like the over.
There we go. Guys, go check out PrizePicks. Again, link in the description. We move it on to the Utah Jazz, 5.5-point favorites in Houston, 232 total. Jazz should just be a normal team other than not having Colin Sexton, like they did not have him on Tuesday. This kind of broke out pretty normal. They're going to look interesting against Houston because it's Houston. 20-ish% ownership going to Clarkson, Conley, Olynyk, Beasley, Vanderbilt pulling some love, Kessler not so much, Markkanen not really getting the ownership. The 9K price tag makes some sense, but I think he is probably a little light like he was 2 nights ago. This is just a situation where I kind of just want anybody that plays like 24 minutes or more for the Jazz, and I do think that they all look relatively similar. I'm a little lighter on Jordan Clarkson, but I tend to be just in general.
I wish that I tended to be in general. Yeah, it's kind of just similar to the other night. Like you said, the whole team looks pretty good. None of them are standing out as like, highest owned guys on the slate or anything, but 5K for Beasley pulling 22%, 24% going to Conley at 5,700. Not the most exciting guy to get to, but about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy that should give you 29, 30 minutes. Did play 33 last game. So, here and there you can get a little bit more, but they're both going to look good just from a relative value standpoint. Kelly Olynyk at 5,300, playing 30 plus minutes when he's not in foul trouble, or getting around 30 minutes at least when he's not in foul trouble. Was disappointing last game in 28.5 minutes, but typically is around a fantasy point per minute guy. Clarkson at 7,300, Vanderbilt at 5,100, both make sense. Markkanen not getting a lot of ownership, and I get why, because he is up to 9K, but he is a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy that should play 34 to 36 minutes. So there's plenty of upside for him there. I just think he's a little bit less favorably priced than the other Utah guys, but certainly has a ceiling on him. We saw pretty much the rotation that we expected last game. The only exception is that Agbaji did play 7 minutes, but you still got Nickeil Alexander-Walker playing 15. There's a chance he could play a little bit more here if they were to kick Agbaji out of the rotation. You got pretty much... So you got 17 minutes from Kessler, you got 25 from Vanderbilt, and so you got like 6-7 minutes of Olynyk at center. They could do that again. They could go back to more of a 48-minute split. I do think that Kessler at 5K and no ownership is interesting in tournaments, just because if you get, like, even if they were to split 48 minutes, he's going to project well. But also if Vanderbilt gets in foul trouble and Kessler just plays more minutes, he's going to project well. So, again, the opportunity cost is high. I don't want to go crazy getting to Walker Kessler, but I do think when you consider the range of outcomes, he's probably going a little bit overlooked at only 3.5%.
I'm with you on that one. Easy for him to grab a couple extra minutes here, multiple different ways that can happen. I did give Olynyk like 2 or 3 minutes here.
Yeah, and the Rockets are also playing a center for 40 minutes, most likely, so that helps.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see Olynyk get a couple minutes at center here. He could very easily get out there at the 5 with no real issues.
Yeah, like that's how I'm going to project it. Like I said the other day, we'd seen a couple of games where they went 48 minutes for Kessler and for Vanderbilt. The problem with that is if you project that, you start to squeeze Malik Beasley's minutes away. Now with Colin Sexton out, you can still make it work where Beasley gets his minutes and they go 48. Like again, if you were just kick Agbaji out and give all those minutes to Beasley or something. But it becomes a situation where I typically like to project them to play like 42 minutes combined between Vanderbilt and Kessler. Then you give the rest to Olynyk, and then that kind of opens it up for Beasley to get those minutes out there with Olynyk at the 5.
I assume you're setting some sort of rule for just one of Kessler Vanderbilt or max 2 of Olynyk Vanderbilt Kessler.
I just do 1 of Kessler Vanderbilt.
Okay,
but you could make the case for max 2. It's just that like if Olynyk gets in foul trouble with the players that are available, I don't think they're really going back to the Vanderbilt Kessler lineup unless they were like have multiple guys in foul trouble. I think it's more likely that you're just getting like a little bit more Rudy Gay. You're getting Lowry playing the 4 a little bit more, with Beaslly playing more, Alexander Walker or Agbaji playing more. Like Fontecchio picks up minutes if they really need him to. Like I don't think their tendency this year, outside of those games where they were starting next to each other, has been that they do not play next to each other.
Agreed. The Houston side is interesting here. Now they are on a back-to-back, so we don't technically have their injury report, and we won't have it for what?
You didn't hear that?
No.
Oh, I thought like Jordan like sneezed or something. I don't know. Must have just been on my end.
No, Jordan looks creepy as hell right now. Anyway,
he's thinking about Chuck E. Cheese's.
Yeah, probably PTSD.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get that. Not that it matters.
Nope.
So they're on a back-to-back. We don't have their injury report, but for all intents and purposes, I'm assuming that Eric Gordon isn't playing. He does not play. He does not generally play back-to-back. So I'm going to assume that he is continuing to not play a back-to-back, which means KJ Kenyon Martin Jr., whatever, the second, I don't know, is going to move into the starting lineup. And he's priced like he's the backup. So $3,500, small forward, power forward eligible, playing, I don't know, call it 29 minutes. 60% owned on DK, 60% owned on FanDuel. And to me, the very obvious value play that everybody wants today.
Yeah, it's just extremely obvious. And it's such a cheap price tag that it's just difficult to fail. As long as he gets around, the 28 to 30 minutes that he typically does as a starter, it's just, and especially with it being a 4-game slate, so there's not likely to be a ton of alternatives in that price range that are going to look remotely similar. It's just, even if he goes for 20 fantasy points, yeah, that's not great, but chances are it's still going to be good enough to, that you're building a good, rest of the lineup around him. It's just tough for him to really fail at that price, and he certainly can put up a score that you have to have. He's not a bad point per minute guy. He's not a super high usage guy, so when he moves into the starting lineup, you don't see a big change in his rates. He kind of just is a very efficient scorer, rebounds, gets some of the stats. So he kind of just doesn't drop off a lot when he moves into the starting lineup.
And then the rest of this team is basically the same in terms of looking incredibly interesting against a Jazz team that isn't a very good defense. KPJ, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Şengün, all like 25 to 30% owned. I think all of that is essentially warranted. To me, Houston's starting five looks like very clearly the best options you're going to find for today's slate. I don't really have much separating Porter, Green, Smith, Şengün. I'm guessing you don't either, but do you have someone that just immediately jumps out?
No, they all look pretty similar to me. Like, you can expect 34, 35 minutes from Green and Porter. You can expect 27, 28 from Şengün. He's only 5,800, so that's a good price tag. Porter's $1,000 more expensive than Green now, so Green is getting a little bit more ownership. Porter, the slightly better point per minute guy. I like Jabari Smith. He's still only 4,800. He was 7% owned last night, which was nice. Now he's projected for 30. Just too cheap of a price tag. His playing time's been trending up because he's been playing better. You can expect him typically to play 30 to 32 minutes. Makes him just look good at that salary. Tari Eason's pulling 13% ownership. I, once again, don't really know why Tari Eason is pulling 13% ownership. I get the play as just like the backup to Jabari Smith, and if he plays 20 to 22 minutes, he's going to be okay at 3,900. I just don't really get why the ownership's there. I, once again, do not think Eric Gordon being out affects Tari Eason. So don't really totally get the ownership. If it comes down, I think he's interesting in tournaments. I just don't really want him in the same lineup as Jabari Smith.
Does Eric Gordon being out unlock anyone else here? Because I don't really find Ty Washington, Garrison Matthews, Josh Christopher, the backup centers, as all that interesting here.
Yeah, I don't really think so. I mean, it increases the chances of a Garrison Matthews random game where, he just goes out there and it's like 4-point plays in the first half or something. But clearly you're not expecting that. It just makes it a little bit more likely. It increases the chances that Ty Washington plays a bunch of minutes, but it's still not what you're expecting. So there's nothing that I'm planning on really getting to as a result.
Okay. I don't really have anything else from Houston other than just play their starting five in volume because they look great.
Play their starting five in volume and pay attention to Tari Eason's ownership, because if it comes down, I do think he makes sense. I just don't really love playing the $3,900 backup power forward at 13%.
I think that's reasonable. All righty, folks. I do want to remind you that you can get 5 days free if you are new to Stokastic.com. Link should be in the description, but it's as easy as wanting to get a trial. Like, if you've never signed up with us before, this is going to be your opportunity to get behind the paywall, see our projections, our ownership, boom, bust, our lineup generator. If you're a smaller amount of lineup player, you're trying to make 1, 2, 3, something in that neighborhood, up to 20. Our lineup generator is going to help you out tremendously there. It's going to rank everything by points and by ownership. You'll be able to pick chalky. You'll be able to pick the type of contest you're trying to go into. So if you're looking to get all of that, if you've never been a subscriber of ours before, Link in the description. You'll probably see it in chat as well. 5 days free. You can't ask for anything better. Closing it out. Late night hammer. 10 o'clock start. This one's going to be a pain in the ass. Although maybe it's not, because I don't find them to be all that interesting. The Clippers are 4.5-point dogs in Denver, 225 total. They're not on a back-to-back, which is helpful. Paul George is questionable tonight. That should give everybody, let everybody just feel really great about how this is going to shake out. Kawhi is available. Nick Batum is out with a sprained ankle. John Wall is available. As I look at the Clippers, they've got Kawhi at 20% ownership, Zubats at 25% ownership at 4,900. Another guy that's just another center-only dude that looks fantastic at his price tag for this 4-gamer. Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson pulling a little bit of love. On FanDuel, these guys don't look great at all. Let's just start at the top. Even if Paul George is in, like, clearly our ownership is 4% because he's got a Q tag, but even if Paul George is in, it's not like I think he's some exceptional play in this spot. So I don't mind the Q tag so much because I don't think I'm going to get all that much Paul George to begin with.
Yeah, like I think he's fine. He's 8,800. He's Paul George. If he's in, he's playing 34 to 36 minutes. We have him with a 20% chance of being optimal. He is shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings, so that's nice. I think he's a good play, but I don't think he's like exceptional or anything, given the way the slate looks and all the other very good options. I do like him though. Shooting guard, small forward, 8,800. Like I would expect to be getting to him. I don't expect it to be like, oh, cool, I don't have any Paul George. I don't need to worry about if he plays or not.
Do you prefer George or Kawhi, or do you just not care?
I think they're pretty similar. 8,100 for Kawhi, assuming he's going to play 32 to 34 minutes. Small forward, power forward, so not quite as much flexibility as George, but still pretty easy to get into lineups. Looks good. Will certainly look better if George is out.
Zubats is the Clippers version of Steven Adams, 4,900 on DraftKings, 6,600 on FanDuel. Two very different plays across both sites, but he looks, to me, he's very clearly the best Clippers option today.
Yeah, agreed. 4,900. We have him with an 18% chance of being optimal, 25% ownership. Plays probably at least 28 to 30 minutes if George is in. Probably plays more if George is out. Good point per minute guy. Will have his hands full, but also they would probably like him to be out there for as many minutes as he can. So, yeah, this looks like a really good play at that salary.
After that, I am not all that enamored with the rest of the Clippers, whether that's Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, Powell, Wall, Kennard. I don't see anything from a priority standpoint. I barely have this team in my lineups currently on the FanDuel side. Now, their pricing on FanDuel is way worse. They're all like a couple $100 more expensive across the board. I just don't find them all that interesting.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot here. I mean, the DraftKings prices are cheap. Like Marcus Morris at 4,700 certainly can get there in 30 minutes, but you're also getting 15% ownership. So I'm not really sure like where the edge is there. Reggie Jackson at 4,400. Like it doesn't take a lot in 30 minutes for Reggie Jackson to pay that off. The problem is that like asking Reggie Jackson to simply score the basketball is asking a lot. So like he's going to get the opportunities, but also he's Reggie Jackson. So like I get he's getting 10% ownership. It makes sense in that there's just not that many cheap point guards that are going to play 30 minutes, but yeah, he'll look better if George is out.
Right.
Same for Morris. So
the trickle down there is huge because then you're replacing a 30% usage guy and everybody gets back to being normal. When George and Kawhi are both out there, like no one else does anything with the ball. That's where it starts to get crazy because if you remove Paul George, then Reggie Jackson probably is a really good play at 4,400 and John Wall becomes a really interesting play at 4,400. But for now, I don't see it.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, the Paul George news is huge. And hopefully we get it early in the day because I don't feel like sitting around dealing with this tonight. But yeah, like it's huge. If George is in, then it's sort of just Jackson, Morris, sure, if you land there because they're pretty cheap on DraftKings. If George is out, you still can't trust Reggie Jackson, but he's certainly going to look better. Morris is certainly going to look better. Could play a few more minutes as well. Then, a $3,300 Kennard starts to look interesting too.
Finally, we close it out with Denver. Jokic is 11-8. He's 11-5 on FanDuel. These guys are at full strength except for Jeff Green. You're getting Jamal Murray in the 20s for ownership. Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are around 10%. I really like MPJ on FanDuel at 5,700. What do we do here with Jokic? Because he's pulling 20% ownership. And while I love Nikola Jokic, I find him incredibly difficult to get to today. But in my mind, that changes up your lineup construction big time, given the centers that are out there.
So to me, it's going to depend on how ownership ends up looking between him and Doncic to a large part. Right now on DraftKings, we have 22% ownership coming to Jokic. We have 27% coming to Luka. In that case, I just prefer getting to Luka because the value at center looks so good, and you're not getting a big difference in your roster construction by going to Jokic over Luka. You're just then having to find guards and forwards that are cheap and look as good as the centers in that price range. So if you're not going to, and I say that assuming that it's difficult to get Jokic and Luka together on DraftKings right now. So assuming you're playing one or the other, if they're similarly owned, I just prefer going the Luka route because I like the backup centers more than I like the mid-range or cheap, guards and forwards for the most part. So if you were to get it, as we get closer to lock, which I think could happen, Jokic, stays around 20%. Like, I don't think you're going to get a low on Jokic here, but then Luka is suddenly 40, 50%. Then it's like, all right, well, I'm getting a nice leg up on the field if I go the Jokic route and Luka is relatively disappointing, or those backup centers are relatively disappointing. Not backup, cheap centers are relatively disappointing. But right now it's like, you're basically just giving me like a 50-50 proposition of, do I like the lineups better where I pay down at center and get Luka, or I pay down at guard and get Jokic? And the answer is the Luka lineups.
Yeah, like I have Luka projected pretty significantly ahead of Nikola Jokic for right now. And I'm more than okay with that. I'm not getting to a ton of Jokic on the FanDuel side. I'm getting to Luka in basically everything. What do you want to do with the rest of Denver here? Because I'm happy to just mix and match Murray, Gordon, MPJ. I'm not really all that fond of anything from Denver. I don't really like this late night game at all.
I like Murray at 7K. Sure. He's playing huge minutes now. Played another 36 last game. I think that looks like a good price tag. MPJ at 5,900, 13% ownership is fine. Should get around 30 minutes. Aaron Gordon's gotten pretty expensive, so I think it's kind of tough to get there. But yeah, I'm mostly with you. I'm not really enamored with this game or this team, but I do think Jamal Murray at 7K stands out.
Yeah, to me, Murray is the best option from Denver. I can't disagree there. He's 8,100 on FanDuel, so I give significantly less shits on the FanDuel side than I do on the DK side. Whereas like MPJ at 5,700 is $200 cheaper than he is on DraftKings, and he's got small forward, power forward. So MPJ is the guy that I like a lot more on FanDuel. But for DraftKings, 7K Murray playing 35 minutes or more, that makes it really easy to me. I don't really have any interest in like Bruce Brown or Bones Highland. Those prices seem to be at the very least where they're supposed to be, if not a bit overpriced. So
yeah, agreed.
KCP obligatory, like he's going to play 32 minutes and be wildly uninteresting, but it doesn't take much on a 4-gamer.
Yeah. KCP is Reggie Jackson, is Marcus Morris.
Yep. I think the slate shapes up to be pretty fun. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here? Turn it over to NFL strategy.
No, I'm with you. Looks like a fun slate. Definitely keep an eye on the Paul George status. That seems like, well, the Memphis and Orlando who's playing question. But other than that, basically just need Paul George news, at least as of right now.
I assume the Paul George news comes out at 8:01.
Yeah, I'll have to decide. I'll probably have to decide if I'm playing this slate before getting the Paul George.
I mean, at least look, if the news comes out at 8:01, it's also very easy to handle everything that you need to do because your options are exceptionally limited.
Right. The issue is, do I want to register the slate knowing there's a chance that I'm not getting Paul George news until like 9:15, and then I'm just stuck inside today?
Yeah. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Thank you guys for joining us. Hit the like button on your way out the door for Adam's birthday. Thank you to PrizePicks for being the presenting sponsor. We're going to get on out of here. Go watch NFL Strategy Show coming up next. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Peace.